Our first reader for these faculty readings is Quinn Dalton. Quinn is the author of a novel, High Strung, and two story collections, Bulletproof Girl and Stories from the Afterlife. Stories, essays, and articles on publishing and the writing craft have appeared in literary and commercial publications such as Glimmer Train, One Story, Poets and Writers, and New Stories from the South. Midnight Bowling, her novel, was published by Carolina Wren Press in March of this year. The Infinity of You and Me, a novel co-written with the novelist and poet Juliana Baggett under the pen name J.Q. Coyle, is forthcoming from HarperCollins in the fall of 2016. Please welcome Quinn Dalton.
I didn't see how you got up there. I have you all to thank for getting me up here. Really glad to be here and to be part of the conference. Thanks to everyone who worked so hard to put it together and for coming. It's nice, since we all know the experience of sitting alone in a room, typing away. It's nice to be together and have a conversation in it. So my novel's Midnight Bowling. I'm just going to read you the first couple of paragraphs that could kind of give you the information you need, and then I'm going to skip to the end of the chapter and read a tiny bit there. And I hope you enjoy it. 2 million people watched that day in January 1963 when my father choked at the Pro Bowling Championship at the Showboat in Las Vegas. Everybody he knew had seen it, and he had plenty of time to think about that on the drive home to Sandusky. He was in the car. His coach, Leo Florida, had left him before he skipped town. Leo had also left him some cash, but he was gone, and my father was alone and only 17 years old. And before that, he hadn't been as far as Cincinnati on his own. Since then, not a word from Leo for a decade. No one, including Leo's own family, knew where he'd gone, though there'd been plenty of theories. He was back on the hustling circuit, he'd become a communist spy, he'd gone to jail, he was dead, the last two lines gaining ground when he didn't even show up for his own mother's funeral. I didn't know about any of this when my father took me to the Galaxy Lanes for the first time. It was my 9th birthday, November 8th, 1973, and he'd just gotten a promotion at Engineered Fittings, so he said we had a lot to look forward to. And not only that, he said, Leo Florida was back in Sandusky. There was, of course, no way for me to know what this meant to him, even if he tried to explain it. Who he'd been before I was born, what he'd hoped and dreamed for, and how I figured into any of it. So that's a setup, and they do go to the Galaxy, and we meet Leo Florida, and Leo, I've hopefully given you the idea correctly. He's a pretty interesting character, and there's some unexplained tensions between them that Tess is picking up on, and she tries bowling for the first time. And so this is the end of that chapter. Did you see that? What I did? I said, since I didn't yet know the word for strike. Yes, I did, he said, and it was great, but let's not overdo it. I want to go again. My father tilted his head to one side, and the smile and the wrinkles around his eyes told me he loved me. That part of his expression I recognized, but there was something else, a watchfulness, as if he was seeing me in some new way. And he was, he told me later. He understood what I wanted, even though, as was typical for me then, I couldn't put a word to it. Mastery. That was the desire pushing against my ribs. By the time we left, hours later, it turned out, my father tipping an imaginary hat to Leo at the counter as if he'd beaten him fair and square at something. I had fallen in love with bowling the way you love a food and can't remember what your life was like before you tasted it. I loved it for the way the ball curved, hooked, my father explained, magically into the pins. But no, he said, it wasn't magic. A hook took years to get right. It was a fingerprint, the full expression of a bowler's movement, traced across the boards. I closed my eyes and listened, I loved the way he sounded explaining everything to me, and I believed he had come back to bowling not just to see Leo, Florida again, but because of me, because of us. After that, at the Galaxy Lanes, we were the Wycheskis. My father might have only been a pro for one day back in 1963, and he might have choked on national television in front of millions of people, but he was still a pro. No one else there could say that except Leo, Florida. We were the Wycheskis, and we had a plan. By the time I'd rolled my first 200 game, I'd known what to do because my father had explained it. Get going with the Youth American Bowling Association, learn the competition through that and scratch matches. Start after school at the Galaxy when I got old enough, working the counter and scoring matches. Letter in high school, keep up with the league play and tourneys until I was ready for the PBA qualifiers. It was a path. It had been my father's path, in fact, and while it hadn't gone exactly right for him, he was prepared to show me the way. He would teach me how to be weightless on the glide forward. He would teach me the timing of the release. The game was, after all, about position and timing, and he would help me absorb this truth into my very cells. My father warned me that some people wouldn't understand this level of focus. He didn't name Chelsea, my best friend, and her set specifically, but I got his point. Bowling wasn't exactly glamorous, not anymore at least, though the framed black and white photos on Leo's Hall of Fame wall made me wish that men still wore suits and women tight-waisted, full-skirted dresses, sitting in neat rows to watch the hometown matches. My father said it didn't matter those days were gone. It didn't matter that the Galaxy wasn't a showplace anymore, or that the unions were on their backs in our town and across the Midwest while the good jobs blew away, or that thousands of men, some of them scarcely a decade older than me, had streamed from the jungles of Vietnam to the Veterans Home on Columbus Avenue, many of them still missing this or that part, some of them still seeming to be on the lookout for them. What mattered was that perfection could still be had in the form of a ball curving with just the right spin toward its target. Correct action could prevail. Don't let Leo make you think the how doesn't matter, my father said to me over and over again. Maybe he worried from the beginning that Leo would ruin me like he'd nearly ruined him. Anyway, I didn't care. I believed my father when he said the past didn't matter. The important thing was that he was my coach, and we were the perfect combination, natural-born talent and experience. All we needed was each other. We knew this the way we knew the order of pinfall in a perfect strike, left-handed or right-handed, or the number of boards a ball had to hook across to make that strike. What we didn't know was the number of years and months and days we had left together, which were 7, 5, and 2, respectively. That math, simple and final as it turned out to be, was beyond us. Thank you.